Usually, with the onset of spring or autumn, it is customary to give car advice of a seasonal nature. They say look here, pump up there, check this, replace that and buy everything. However, in the rush to do something nice to your car, sometimes it turns out exactly the opposite. Therefore, today we decided to put together some anti-Soviets. At first glance, they are all obviously useful, but in practice they often bring only harm. The first advice would be not to pour too viscous oil. It would seem that summer is ahead, it is easy for the starter to work, and you will not spoil the porridge with oil, because the higher the viscosity of the oil, the greater the thickness of the oil film. But we must not forget about the friction, which increases along with its viscosity. In addition, the thermal conductivity of the oil is very low, and therefore the thicker the oil layer, the more the piston heats up. With heating, its dimensions grow, gaps fall, in general, troubles are possible. That is why your motor can get sick from too much oil. Be careful and prudent. The second tip will be this: do not wash the engine once again. And why is that? Dirty equipment, bad equipment, what would it seem to argue about? So it is, but it is only necessary to organize the washing of a modern motor either very carefully, or in no way at all. It is not by chance that an ad hangs on the gate of every second car wash, saying that the team does not bear any responsibility for the successful operation of the engine after washing. And all because there are too many places on the engine that are afraid of getting water. Generator, starter, engine control system sensor, engine and automatic transmission control system units. So it is better not to drive water under pressure into the gaps of any aggregates once again. We turn to the third tip: do not drive with style through puddles. Take a ride in a puddle after the rain, so that the water jets once again clean the bottom fenders of the car. So what's wrong with that? And the fact that this is boyishness, and it's not just about the pedestrians doused by you. Water entering the intake is able to instantly disable the engine by organizing a water hammer for it. In addition, a good puddle can twist your car so that no automation will save you. And in addition, a sharp cooling of the jar, which is a catalytic converter, can lead to its damage. Know this. As for the following advice, I may be thrown a stone, but if this is not the case, then write your opinion in the comments. I do not recommend switching to gas without serious necessity. Should I switch to gas? Many summer residents who drive a couple of thousand kilometers for a season at most are thinking, after all, as I will save well, you will not save. Estimate the cost of the work and for what mileage you will recapture this money. Take into account the latest requirements for legalizing such tuning, buy the necessary equipment, say goodbye to the original trunk volume, and only after that make your final decision. But this advice does not apply to taxi drivers and those who are constantly driving, because you really need it. Let's move on to the next tip. Do not change the regular light bulbs to supposedly improved ones. Good light is sacred, but the trouble is that installing bulbs that promise plus 30% of something, as a rule, does not bring an obvious effect. In most cases, such promises speak only of a slight improvement in the luminous flux at 1 or 2 points and no more. But the reduction in service life is guaranteed to you at the same time. Add a fair amount of fuss when replacing. Many cars require removing the bumper, scattering half of the engine compartment and the like. Of course, if the lamp has burned out, then there is nowhere to go, but even in this case we recommend installing the most ordinary lamps, and changing them in pairs. The following advice is, do not spoil the oil and fuel additives without obvious need. After all, no fuel or oil manufacturer requires adding any additives to their products. The same applies to automakers. Of course, when it comes, for example, to removing the accumulated water in the tank or, say, to eliminating the negative consequences of low methane fuel, you involuntarily have to add something. But in a situation where you just stupidly want to improve something, you can think 10 times. Roughly speaking, instead of an additive to engine oil, it makes sense to buy the most expensive oil, for which the car can really thank you. There is another circumstance: as long as the car remains under warranty, any additives are outlawed, and this is right, because everyone should be responsible only for their own creation, and not for someone else's. The warranty will end, you can experiment. But at the same time, remember that the option from the series filled in, went to work in practice is unlikely. The following advice confused me myself, because I did it all the time, not to use an auto-run system without the need. I left the house, and the engine has already warmed up, and in summer the interior is also cold. That's nice. But still, we should not forget about the negative. It is impossible to hammer pistons for a long time in a residential area. Read the traffic regulations. Well, okay, no one observes this. But the point of the advice is that there may be some kind of engine malfunction, from which there may be generally unpleasant consequences, because there is no oil pressure or sound on the control lamp, something hit the drive belt, no one will perceive, you are not in the car, and it's worth thinking about, at least I thought about it. It is also not advised to engage in chip tuning. If you're a fan of chip tuning, you're going to do it anyway, okay? But our good advice to everyone else is not to get involved in this matter, at least because any chip tuning will immediately affect the resource of the motor, and not in the direction of increasing it. And the gearbox of any type will not thank you for it. This is where our harmful tips come to an end. Put a like if you liked this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't had time yet. Well, don't forget about the comments, what you agree with and what you don't, maybe you want to argue, you're welcome. The Prof2 channel was with you, see you soon.